there's a lot of conversation about Sam Hartman and what he means for Notre Dame, and a lot of misunderstanding of some comments you've made about Sam Hartman. And what you're saying about it. So that's what we're going to kind of dive into today, Sean. So why don't you kick it off kind of with where you're kind of what you want to discuss and what you want to kind of bring up today, and then also get my opinion on today.
Well, man, great to have the show back. Great to be back with my guy. I call him the boss man. He doesn't like that. But great to be back with you guys. And thank you for so much love for the hats. I do this is my favorite IB hat that I have. So I thank Brian Driscoll for sending it to me. This was like the tester, right? When you got the new one, you were like, "Oh man, I got this green one. I want to."
You wanted a green. Well, you wanted a green hat, so I was like, "Okay, let me throw them together." And so, did I send you the other one as well? Don't you have the other green one with the gold on it?
I have the one that you have on today, and the other one. Yes.
Yeah. So you got those, and I was like, okay. And it just looked so good. I was like, and people loved it, so they were like, "Can I get one of those?" I was like, "Yeah, let's put it in the store."
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a sweet hat. Very sweet hat.
So today we're going to start the show. And of course, the topic is going to be Sam Hartman, who transferred into Notre Dame on last week. And as you said, Brian, for me, it goes back to the Gator Bowl, right? Because in order to really get to the topic, we have to go back to the Gator Bowl. And one of the things that I do is I challenge the fan base to elevate their expectations. Anytime something comes up, and you know me, I stand on the hill. I go against Ohio State fan base, Alabama. Like, dude, you can't change what I think about Notre Dame. I don't care if it has been since 1988. We're still Notre Dame and you ain't, as Lou Holtz said. That's not changing. And so I challenge the fan base. No matter what's going on, you have to feel like that your worth and your value as a program is right up there with the best of the programs, other programs in the nation. So when I saw the reaction during the Gator Bowl, when things weren't going so well, when people were posting pictures of a certain quarterback, I felt it was disrespectful to Tyler Buckner. And I was like, we're better than that. We don't have to do that. And then, once Sam Hartman decided to officially release that he was transferring to Notre Dame, the fan response was almost like, man, he's the savior. He's going to be the sole reason we win a national championship. And I'm like, wait, hold up. We really need to discuss this, because I don't have a problem with Sam Hartman coming to Notre Dame. I understand what he brings to the table. But let's not forget, this is Notre Dame. He needs us just as much as we need him. And we need to understand there are going to be certain games. Every game at Wake Forest, he had to play good.
Yeah.
To win a game. There was no other way to win.
Well, you saw the article when he transferred, Sean. The games of 55, 53, 45, 42, 38 Absolutely. Points where they lost.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I think that is where people, I guess they got upset with some of the things that I said, which I've never said anything negative about Sam Hartman. I never said he wasn't a good quarterback. I never said he wasn't an upgrade to the quarterback position, right? I did say just because he's coming in, I fully expect Tyler Buckner to say, this is my spot.
Sure.
Come get it. I don't think Tyler Buckner is going to run from a competition. No. And, some people might differ. If he does lose the competition, I expect Tyler Buckner to stick around and be on the roster next year.
Agree.
Those are my expectations.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, life is about to get a whole lot easier at the quarterback position for Sam Hartman, because he's coming to Notre Dame.
Right.
For a lot of different
reasons. Which is why he's coming to Notre Dame.
Absolutely.
And so, to me, Sean, how I take your comment is basically, it's number one, there is no magic pill. There is no get one guy and you're good. If you put Joe Burrow to LSU and he's not thrown to Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson and Clyde Edwards-Helaire, he's not winning the championship, right? Yeah. If he doesn't have the changes that Joe Brady brought into the system, they don't win a championship. And if they don't have a Dave Aranda running that defense to make stops for a team that scores at will, and then you see what happens with Oklahoma and LSU, that offense is never good enough to win a championship because the defense can't make enough stops. Dave Aranda's defense obviously was good enough to do that.
Right.
There's all these different pieces to go into it. So what you're not saying, however, is that, Sam Hartman doesn't move the needle, because at least I don't think that you are. Because I clearly think he does. And I've heard you and I have talked about this. in private. That's why I was so surprised by some of the takes to what you had said. And in this instance, I did not get a chance to listen to that specific episode. You and I talked about it because I saw some of the responses to it. But it's one of those things where, look, we've been adamant about this for years, Sean and I. Notre Dame needs a big-time quarterback to have a chance to play for championship.
Absolutely.
Do I think Sam Hartman is on the same level as Caleb Williams and guys like that? No, I don't. But I don't think Notre Dame needs that kind of quarterback. There's no question that the one thing holding Notre Dame back in many years has been quarterback play.
Absolutely.
But the point is that Sam Hartman doesn't walk into a situation with a roster that's just okay, and then he puts it on his shoulders and says, "Let's go win a championship." That's not what's happening here. It's you have a roster that is Sam Hartman and a couple other pieces away from really being a championship caliber team, and that's what has people excited about it. Is that right there? Because look, the reality is, Sean, and you kind of hit on both points of this, in my opinion, is landing Sam Hartman makes Notre Dame and greatly increases Notre Dame's chances of having an elite quarterback play next year.
Yeah.
And that's not just has nothing to do with that. That's not only about Sam Hartman. It's if Sam Hartman's starting quarterback, he's gonna have to beat out Tyler Buchner. That's not going to be easy. And if he does beat out Tyler Buchner and he is as good as we think he can be, and the Notre Dame system and the talent around him is able to do for him what we think it will do for him, because he's going to elevate the talent around him, and the talent around him is going to elevate him. That's truly, to me, the makings of a great offense. Is Joe Burrow needed those other players around him, but also Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson needed Joe Burrow. And that's how it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
And so when I look at it, I say, this isn't a situation where Sam Hartman just comes in and puts the entire program on his shoulders. Sam Hartman elevates the program because he fits a very important role that has really been lacking for the most part for years, if we're going to be completely honest about it. And so that's what has people so excited. But part of the reason Sam Hartman picked Notre Dame is because of the fact that the town around him is going to be so much better. But the other part of it too, Sean, is it's not just if Sam Hartman's a starter. If Tyler Buchner beats out Sam Hartman, then again, same thing. So your margin for error, which we talk about a lot on this show, is so much greater by getting Sam Hartman, because it's going to push Tyler Buchner to be his best. And maybe it's not good enough for him to be the starter in 2023, but it's going to make him better, which then puts him in position to A, step in if his number's called in 2023, or B, if he does stay and takes over in 24 and 25, he's going to be such a better player by being pushed. He's never been pushed by anyone. Truly, in my opinion.
Not really. Most people will tell you that the competition with Drew Pine pushed him, but
it didn't.
It didn't.
I mean, it didn't. I mean, Tyler was clearly the better player there. And I mean, every source I have at Notre Dame said the same thing, whether it was Notre Dame sources, people that were in practices that I knew that were at some of the practices that weren't open to the media would say the same thing. It's really not close. Talking to parents, talking to players, talking to other people around the program, it was never close. And, so Tyler earned the starting job. I don't want to disrespect him by saying that, but Tyler was never pushed. I mean, Jack Cohn it wasn't a push there because Tyler was a freshman. The expectations weren't there for him to come in. I know fan expectations were that he was going to come in and play start as a freshman, but that was never Notre Dame's expectation, which is why they went and got Jack Cohn in the first place.
Right.
And so, I think it's going to make Tyler a better player. And whether that means his time comes in 24 or 25, it remains to be seen. But the thing about it is in 2023, the margin for error has been greatly widened. And if, God forbid, there's another quarterback injury next year, you're now walking a situation where instead of having Drew Pine coming off the bench, you've got a Tyler Buchner coming off the bench. And then worst case scenario, a second-year Steve Angeli or a Kenny Minchey. The quarterback room got tremendously better because there's two big additions to the quarterback room this spring. And it's not just, you lose Drew Pine, but you're adding Sam Hartman and Kenny Minchey this spring. So the talent in the quarterback room got way better. And now it's just about, okay, can they get all the pieces around him? Do they have all the pieces around him for this offense to be a championship caliber offense? And I think that's the question here, Sean. And I know that's also leads into some other aspects of this that you want to discuss.
Well, we can progress through this The next spot I want to get to, let me call an audible right quick. Because
Let's do it.
you said something that was key right there. And you talk about transitioning and bringing him in. He elevates the quarterback room. And this is something I told you. And this is something that made me upset about the response from Notre Dame fans, especially the fans that were like, yeah, we're winning a national championship. You're being unfair to Sam Hartman. You're being unfair to Sam Hartman. Don't do that. That's the same thing you did to Drew Pine.
Sean, when you say
And then
that, do you mean like
when Drew Pine had a bad game, then you wanted to protect him.
Yeah.
Instead of just looking at it for what it was and just giving him the chance to grow and play football. Like Sam Hartman is making a true transition.
Sure.
He's going from a mesh system to a pro system.
Right.
Now, that might not be a tremendous jump.
In my opinion, it won't be as big of a jump as Jack Cohn made.
Right.
Now, it was an under center play action. Yeah.
This is something I had to go to guys that played for Notre Dame to ask them if I was tripping.
Mm-hmm.
Because Sam Hartman's biggest game every year was Clemson.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. Notre Dame plays 3 to 4 Clemson games.
Right. Well, this next year, especially, Sean.
Every year.
I mean, this next year, Clemson could be their third best opponent.
Absolutely. And someone else could jump up in the ACC.
Sure.
And rival Clemson.
Duke, NC State,
absolutely.
Louisville, all teams that Notre Dame plays next year.
So what we're really talking about here, this is why it's unfair. And Sam Hartman has never experienced walking out in Notre Dame Stadium under the lights against Ohio State. He's never experienced that. He's never experienced weeks later Caleb Williams coming in under the lights in that rivalry, what that means. This is a whole new level. This is Notre Dame. And it's not just the big games.
Right.
Malik pointed this out to me. He said, Sean, it's not even the big games. He said it's the fact that everybody on the schedule seems to play their best against Notre Dame.
Sure.
He said they're going to get everyone's best. He said he hasn't experienced that. He said, so it's going to be something different that he's going to have to get used to. He said, but the blessing is the 5 guys in front of him, that running back room behind him, the coaching staff, and everything that he's walking into is going to make it a little bit easier to transition and not to have pressure to be the guy. Mm-hmm. He's going to be one of the guys. He doesn't have to be the guy. All he has to do is be Sam Hartman, the quarterback. Be the same quarterback you were at Wake Forest. If you can do that, we're not asking you to come in and be Bryce Young. We're not asking you to come back in and be a top 5 NFL draft pick and put everybody on your shoulders and carry us. That's not what we're asking you to do. We're asking you to come in and be a part of what we're already building to. And if you play to the level that we expect you to play to, we're going to be right there knocking on the door of the college football playoff. Because we have that expectation as a staff in the middle of the season. I think they realized at some point during the middle of the season, once they got things corrected, they realized what they didn't have. They realized what they did have.
There's a lot of self-awareness.
Absolutely.
About what the team was lacking.
Absolutely.
In a lot of ways.
This is another year. This is another thing. And then I'll let you ride out. And we talked about this. The reason they feel that way is because the landscape of college football is about to be totally different in 23. It's going to be a very obscure year when it comes to the quarterback situation. Because most of your big-time programs will have first-time starters, except for USC. USC is the only big...
In Michigan.
In Michigan. You're right. Alabama, Georgia. Everybody's going to have a new starter. A new quarterback that they're trying to work in. I think Georgia's probably waiting around for Spencer Sanders after this championship game. That's the rumor down there. That more than likely that's where he lands.
And if it's not him, it's going to be some other highly ranked kid. Brock Vandagriff, Carson Beck, something like that.
The landscape so most of the veteran quarterbacks are going to be, at Duke, at other teams.
Yeah.
You might see some of those teams get a little bit more confident after watching TCU face off.
Well, Notre Dame should be getting more confident about that after watching TCU.
Absolutely.
I mean, to me, Tyler Buckner's a better version of Max Duggan. I mean, that's what I see Tyler Buckner as. Better playmaker, better thrower when he's on.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a better version of Max Duggan, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And, you know, look, now the question, however, is why is Max Duggan in the – see, here, to me, the title game is a perfect example of what you're talking about, Sean.
Mm-hmm.
Because think of all the big-time quarterbacks in college football this year, and there were some dudes in college football this year.
Yeah.
Right? There was Caleb Williams who won the Heisman. There's C.J.
Mm-hmm.
Stroud. There's Bryce Young. There's some big-time quarterbacks. What are they all doing tonight? They're all watching the game on their TV just like we are, right? Why? Because the pieces around them, coaching-wise and player-wise, weren't always what they needed to be. Stetson Bennett and Max Duggan, neither of them will be, to me, unless some NFL team is just dumb, neither of them will be day 1 or day 2 picks, in my opinion. They're both rounds 5 to 7 guys at best, in my opinion.
Guarantee this, though. They will have the best job in all of pro football, which is the backup quarterback.
Correct. But my point is, but they were guys that came in and did, like Stetson Bennett has really developed as a player. You know, people put too much hype on him, and but the fact is he does what he needs to do. But the reason he's got a chance to be a 2-time champion, and Bryce Young and C.J. Stroud and Caleb Williams have combined for 0, is because of what's around him. Great coaching, great team around him. And that's the point that Sean's making is, look, don't put the pressure on they're a championship team because of Sam Hartman, because if they don't win, then it'll be blamed on Sam Hartman. Yeah. That's the reality of it. When in reality, it may be because they're not good enough at some other places.
Yeah.
I think the excitement, however, from fans, and I get this, is because the quarterback play has been so mediocre for years that we had to listen to people hype up Ian Book as some sort of like great player, right? And he was just a nice, steady game manager type of kid and good kid and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But not a guy you're winning a championship with.
No.
You know, can Sam Hartman be that kind of guy? Absolutely. When I watch the championship game tonight, I'm going to be thinking, why can't Notre Dame, you know, at the quarterback position be on this level? You know, and that's the key. Because Sean, you had made a comment to me like, if he plays the way that he needs to play at Notre Dame and the way I think he's capable of. And so what does that look like, right? So when I look at Sam Hartman and the transition he's making, the difference between him and Jack Cohn, Jack had to learn completely new footwork, going from being a predominantly under center guy with a fullback and play action pass and all that to a spread guy. And I thought by middle of the year, Tommy Rees had him ready to play. I mean, Jack Cohn in the last 5-6 games of the season.
We were searching, trying to find an extra year eligibility for Jack Cohn.
Seriously. Right. And I've said this before. If Jack Cohn's Notre Dame starting quarterback this year, you know, I'm not sure. Maybe one team beats him. Maybe one team beats him. But you know, his last. I mean, gosh, his last 71.4% completion, 66.7, 79.3, 75, 70.3. Then he was only 55.9 in the bowl game against Oklahoma State, but he passed for 509 yards and 5 touchdowns, right? Yeah. It got to the point where we're thinking about, man, if Jack Cohn would have come back this year, what could have been? Think about that statement, though. He was an undrafted free agent. But that's how thirsty Notre Dame fans are for a quarterback that can play. And you know me, I'm a big proponent of Jack Cohn and what he brought to the table. But Sam Hartman, to me, is making less of a transition in a lot of different ways mechanically. All he needs to do is eliminate stuff, not add stuff. He has dropped back under center from shotgun. He's going to eliminate that mesh stuff that's when a lot of his mistakes would happen. Is he'd get into that mesh stuff and he's throwing because the slow mesh takes him towards the line of scrimmage and then the offensive line is coming back. There's times he's kind of like jumping up and throwing as the guys are hitting him in the face. Balls are getting tipped. Yeah. It's harder for him to see reads. So you got to see him kind of step back and drop and you know, go through the progressions in that kind of way, Sean. And so those are the different aspects that you look at and say, you know, he's not making the same kind of changes that we saw from Sam Hartman. I mean, from Jack Cohn. Yeah. So I think that transition will be good. Now, the change for him is going to be from a reading and a processing thing. So that's where Jack Cohn didn't have to make a huge adjustment. Is Jack came from a pro-style passing system to a pro-style passing system.
Right.
It was different, but, you know, he was making deeper, more complex reads at Wisconsin. Sam hasn't done as much of that at Wake Forest. So that the adjustment for him is going to be more mental than physical, which for me, if he's got the mental acumen, will actually be good because you can make that in a spring and a summer.
Right.
And so that's a positive. What can be different is when you've got to reprogram your body to do something it's not used to doing. That's where you can get to be. That's where you can have a challenge. You know, like Joe Burrow needed a transition year to kind of get comfortable, you know, when he transferred. But some guys don't because they go to systems that are better suited to kind of what they do. Like Justin Fields had more of a transition into Georgia than he had into Ohio State, because into Georgia he had to learn to be more under center and do all that kind of stuff. And whereas going to Ohio State, he was going back to kind of stuff he did in high school. And so that's what I look at. But, you know, to me, it's one of those things where, you know, what does it look like for Sam Hartman to run this offense effectively? Well, he was never really a high completion percentage guy. Part of that is because he threw more balls 10 yards past the line than anybody in college football the last 2 years. This year, no one threw more passes down the field from either 10 plus or 20 plus the last 2 years than Sam Hartman. Now, this year, Drake May threw more individually this year by like 3. He had 117. Sam Hartman had 110. He was third this year in yards in attempts past 20 yards. I mean, this cat's throwing the ball downfield a lot. Well, the further down the field you go, the lower your completion percentage is going to be.
Right.
And then when you're talking about playing behind the offensive line he played in all 5 of his years at Wake Forest averaged 92nd or worse in sacks allowed. And part of that is the offensive line hasn't been very good most years. And the other part of it is the system inherently puts the quarterback in more sack opportunities and getting hit in the face opportunities.
Yeah.
Because of the way that the meshes run. So, and that was part of the reason I didn't want him at first, Sean, to be completely honest with you. That's the reason I was like, I mean, you know this, when you and I first started talking about Sam Hartman being an option for Notre Dame, I was like, I'm not sure how I feel about this, man, just from having watched them on TV.
Right.
Well, then you dive into the film a little bit more and you start to find those snaps where he was more of a drop back quarterback. Like, oh, when he was doing that, this cat was money. And so you look and say, this is a guy that can complete 65 to 68% of his passes in this style of offense. This is a guy that can also still attack the ball down the field. He's not going to throw the ball deep as much as he did at Wake Forest.
Yeah.
Won't have to. But it'll be in more one-on-one opportunities because he's going to have a lot more defenders near the box than he did at Wake Forest.
Yeah.
So he's going to have a lot more one-on-one reads on the outside, a lot more ISO reads than he had at Wake Forest, where he had to kind of read through the whole defense. That should help him a bunch. And then you would hope that it's going to cut down on his interceptions some, but I'm honestly not going to obsess too much over the interceptions because, number one, yeah, as you kind of go through and you look at the 26 picks he had last year, I'd say about 4 or 5 of them were off of kind of deflected balls. Some of the others a couple others were just trying to take some chances in situations where they were trailing. And then there's times he'll just flat miss a read and just not see a guy like
Brian. That's called being the guy that has to make. It's the same thing. Remember that year Deshaun had, well, he threw 20 interceptions, but he was throwing the ball like 70 times a game.
Right.
Because he was the only thing that Clemson had offensively because they didn't have a running game.
Well, they didn't try to build one. Yeah.
Right.
Which, you know, I thought they should have ran better with Wayne Gallman there, but they just kind of decided they were going to go in that direction. And that was kind of when I thought the Clemson offense started to kind of go like this. They put so much on the quarterback's shoulders, and the scheme wasn't good. I've never been a big fan of Clemson's offensive scheme. You know that. They just win because they had better players than everybody else, or at least better quarterback there. But yeah, but see, you've got to be careful not to beat too much of that out of him, because it's kind of like with Tyler Buchner. Am I okay with Tyler Buchner throwing 3 picks? No, I'm not. Do I want to completely eliminate the things that led to those 3 picks? No, I don't. Because if you eliminate that, then you also eliminate the crazy throw to Jaden Thomas. You eliminate the bomb they threw to Braden Lindsey. I don't want to eliminate that. I just want to get him a little bit smarter with it. So you're going to have to live with the fact that there's going to be a couple picks next year that he's going to throw that you're like, yeah, Drew Pine never would have made that pick. You're correct. But there's about 12 throws that Sam Hartman's going to make every game that like Drew Pine never would even attempt, much less complete.
No,
that's the trade-off.
That's facts
that you need to look into, and that's what's going to make this team so much better, in my opinion, is because of that. Whether it's Sam Hartman or Tyler Buchner quarterback, but of course, look, Notre Dame's not bringing Sam Hartman in with the thought that he's going to get beat out in 2 weeks, and Sam Hartman's not coming here with the thought he's going to get beat out.
No.
Can Tyler Buchner beat him out? Of course he can, but it's not what I'm expecting. So we're going to kind of go with the premise that if Sam Hartman wins the job, and so. Then you get into, Sean, okay, well, are the pieces around him good enough? Because here's what I don't think Sam Hartman's going to be able to do. I don't think Sam Hartman's going to be able to put this team completely on his shoulders and go win a championship. And
Wait.
honestly,
Hold. Can you say that one more
I
time?
don't think Sam Hartman's going to be able to put this team on his shoulders and go win a championship
Okay.
the way that like Trevor Lawrence did. I mean, excuse me, Deshaun Watson did in 2016. The way that in some ways Mac Jones did in 2020 in some ways.
I just wanted I wanted it to come out of your mouth.
Yeah. Because, but what you have to understand is, does that mean Sam Hartman can't win a title? No, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is he is more Max Duggan, Stetson Bennett than he is Bryce Young, CJ Stroud. But who's playing for a title? In Caleb Williams. But who's playing for a title tonight? It's not Bryce Young. No. It's not CJ Stroud. It's not Caleb Williams. It's not Drake May. It's not Hendon Hooker. Who is it? It's Max Duggan and Stetson Bennett.
Stetson Bennett.
And that's my point, is that Notre Dame is not in a position yet where they have a quarterback that can just say, hey, now maybe they have one. Maybe that guy's Tyler Buckner. Because the interesting thing is, Sean, is I do think Tyler Buckner can be that kind of guy. I just don't think it's going to be 2023 yet. I do think Tyler Buckner is the kind of talent that can put a team on his shoulders and say, I got this. But he's not there yet. I think Kenny Minchey could maybe be that guy. I think CJ Carr can be that guy. But they're not going to be the quarterbacks in 2023. So the key is Sam Hartman that missing piece to a championship puzzle? That's the key. That's what I think he can be, but they're not quite there yet. There's a couple little things they need to add, and some of them they've already added, Sean. Yeah. We'll get to it when we get to the transfer stuff, but there's some other pieces that need to add, and some key pieces they have added from high school recruiting and then also from the transfer portal that's going to be there. Because if you take Sam Hartman and put him on the Notre Dame 2022 team, Notre Dame is, to me, at worst 10-2, maybe even 11-1. Like, I don't know if this team was.
They don't lose. They don't lose to Marshall and Stanford.
No, and
they don't lose to Marshall and Stanford.
And I think they would have won either Ohio State or USC. I think they would have won one of those games, in my opinion. At best, I think they could have. Like, to me, USC definitely USC, because Sam Hartman, I don't think, makes those turnovers that Drew Pine made.
I would say this later in the season. Yes, the USC game would have been a better bet than game one.
If I was projecting, I think they would have still lost the opener because the O-line wasn't playing well. They'd had trouble giving him time. But to me, when I look at, I'll take this to my grave, Sean. 17-7. Notre Dame goes down there and scores to make it 17-14. Third quarter,
the second half.
USC, they roll USC. USC wouldn't know how to handle that. Look at that happen against Utah. Once Utah smacked them in the mouth a little bit and got on them, USC collapsed.
Once Tulane smacked them in the mouth.
Right. I mean, Caleb Williams had to be Superman that game, and they still were Drew Pine making a couple really bad mistakes away from being in that game and having a shot to win it. Sam Hartman makes his team better. Sam Hartman gets them to the point where quarterback won't be the reason they don't play for a title next year.
No.
That's what Sam Hartman does.
No.
In my opinion.
Thomas Harper makes this team better. We were just talking about that.
Right. So and we'll get to that in a second too. Right. But like, just wrapping up the quarterback position, Sean, is we have to be willing to address this, is like, look, we have to be willing to say that Sam Hartman makes his team better.
Heck yeah.
No question, like way better than what the quarterback play was. But I don't think that it's fair to ask him or any other transfer portal. I think he's probably the best player that jumped into the portal quarterback. My opinion. I think he's better than Spencer Sanders. He may not be more physically gifted than Spencer Sanders, but he's a better quarterback than Spencer Sanders. He's better than Graham Mertz. He's better than much better than Grayson McCall. I'm trying to think of some of the other quarterbacks. He's better than, obviously, way better than Jack Plummer.
Hudson Card.
I mean, Hudson Card may have more physical tools, but he's not going to be the better quarterback in 2023 for the same reason that Tyler Buckner may not be the better quarterback in 2023. And I don't think Hudson Card has physical tools as good as Tyler Buckner's, in my opinion. So, to me, he makes them better, and he helps reduce the odds that quarterback's the reason they don't play for a title next year.